All right, Notre Dame looks pretty well stocked with talent to rebound from a 4-8 finish in 2016. We bring in Kevin Sinclair from Slap the Sign, who's been joining me on a regular basis to break down the Irish position by position. Kevin, it's always a good discussion. And when we talk defensive front, that's probably the one area of the team that causes possibly the main concern. You've got a couple of productive players that are moving on, and Dalen Hayes is probably the guy with the biggest ceiling coming back after playing 5 games and recording 12 total tackles last year.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest concern for Notre Dame that people are looking into and talking about right now, the defensive line. Last year, they were very stagnant along the front and kind of in years past as well. They've lost Isaac Rochelle and Jerron Jones, two of their main contributors. This year, it looks like weak side defensive end is going to have a bit of a juggle. Andrew Trembetti, who started there last year, it looks like he might be going over to the strong side defensive end position. That's where he lined up during their first practice on Wednesday. It looks like Dalen Hayes is probably going to be the starter this year, a weak side defensive end or drop end that they call it in Mike Elko's new 4-2-5 defense. He's a true sophomore. He was a 5-star by some recruiting services standards. There's also Julian Aquara. He's also a really dominant defensive end from a pass rushing perspective out of high school. He's put on some weight. He's up to 235 now. So the two of them look like they're kind of primed to kind of take over that weak side defensive end spot this year. Over a strong side defensive end is a little bit of a worry there. They've got Andrew Trembetti, like I said, is switching over to that side. They've also got a Jay Hayes, who started off as a defensive tackle, and then he moved over to weak side defensive end last year, but he hardly played, and apparently he had some injuries, and then it's kind of a question mark as to what happened with him. People are really wondering about what's going on, as well as myself, with him at strong side defensive end. Hopefully he'll get in there and provide a spark. Defensive tackle, there's Daniel Cage. They're kind of keeping low, not getting him in so much because he's had some concussion issues. But we're looking forward to him getting some good reps in there, defensive tackle. Jerry Tillery played nose tackle as a freshman, and then last year he played defensive tackle, played some 3 technique, and he wasn't very effective. So it looks like they lined him up at nose tackle at the first team on Wednesday. You know, he's near 6'7", 310 pounds-ish. We're looking for him to probably dominate at nose tackle this year, hopefully. He definitely has the ability to do so. Over at defensive tackle, they had Jonathan Bonner lined up there with the first team on Wednesday, who's been mainly a strong side defensive end, bit of a swing guy, lines up in the inside sometimes. So I was quite surprised to see him there, but it looks like they feel comfortable with him there, and they'll probably get a rotation of guys. Obviously, true freshman Darnell Ewell, who I'm really excited about, will be joining the team this summer, and we're really hoping that he's going to be able to provide a spark in the interior of their D-line, because they certainly need it going into this season to be successful.
Yeah, Kevin, we see 5 guys coming in August. Unfortunately for the Irish, no early enrollees that are already in camp are along the defensive front. But you mentioned Ewell, who's a top 10 defensive tackle, 4th-ranked player out of Virginia. In addition to him, do you see, in looking down the list, a lot of other guys not nearly as highly regarded, but could possibly come into play this fall?
Well, yeah, there's Myron Tagovailoa Amosa is his name, from Hawaii. Real big kid. They got late in the game, 6'4"-ish, 270. He's kind of a defensive end, defensive tackle. I wouldn't be surprised if he got in there. He moves really well for a big guy. But again, he's kind of coming in late in the game. Kofi Wardlow's a weak side defensive end out of Washington, D.C. He had really good stats last year, really good athlete. But I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to crack the roster this year. But you never know. You know, guys like Julian Love last year, we wouldn't have expected him to play on the defense. He ended up starting most of the season and put up big numbers and did really well. So we'll see. They're going to need all the help they can get up front. I'm not super convinced that they have the players to do it this year. But like I said, they got that new strength and conditioning staff. They're bulking kids up, and they're really wanting to get after it in the new scheme.
Tagovailoa Amosa, as you mentioned him, as a top 20 strong side defensive end. Yeah, Jonathan McAllister also at that same spot, probably a name that we're going to hear about 2018 and beyond, but comes in from Florida as a top 150 player out of Florida, a top 40 strong side defensive end there. So numbers coming in, and obviously Ewell is the headliner out of that 2017 class, but it's a question mark if they can fortify the front, stop the run, get pressure on the quarterback, the Notre Dame, based on what the type of upgrades we see happening in the other positional units on defense, especially, could really be in for a big season. So are you confident? Obviously, not all these guys are going to come through, but you need maybe 3/4 of them to be solid players, and maybe an impact player to need to emerge somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm looking at. They have a pretty solid core, but they need one of Dalen Hayes, Julian Aquara, or also Khalid Kareem, who will play at the strong side defensive end. We need one of those guys at least to come up big this year for the defensive line to be successful. I do have my concerns with guys like Tillery, Cage, Darnell Ewell on the inside. I'm feeling pretty good about that, but I'm kind of at show me mode right now. I'm going to need to see it to be really, I guess, confident in the defensive line. But I feel really good about Dalen Hayes. He's got some freakish athleticism. Sort of looks like the kind of guy you see in Alabama or LSU. He's about 255 pounds, real good, solid muscle, huge legs. I think he's going to be getting at the quarterback pretty good this year, and plays that drop roll really well. He caused a really big-time interception against Michigan State this year deep down the field, and I really like that.
All right, this is what you do, folks. You go to Slap the Sign, slapthesign.com, and you look at anything that Kevin Sinclair posted. And basically, that zeroes you in on Notre Dame football and gets you set with the current recruiting class that's being recruited right now, the 17 class that was just signed, and the entire Notre Dame football picture as we get close to spring practice that we're in right now, and then toward August and into the season. Kevin, we always appreciate the insight.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Mark. Have yourself a good day.